got this equation. It's the equation of a conic, which means it's hyperbola, ellipse, or parabola. Write the standard form of that conic. All right, so these are the long ones. When they say standard form, what do they mean, standard form? They mean like x plus or minus a number. Well, in fact, let me just write it the way they write it. They mean x minus h squared over a squared, plus or minus in the middle, y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. So they mean to make it like that. How am I going to... So I got to change it from this form to that form. That's called completing the square. See, I've got to make squared powered parentheses here. Is it going to be plus or minus? See the minus on the y, x squared minus y squared? So we know, there's no big mystery. It's going to be minus here. It's going to be a hyperbola equation. Okay, so how do we do it? So these take a lot of steps. So to change to parentheses squared form, what's called completing the square. What do we have to do? Step number 1. Gather x squared and x, leave a blank, y squared and y with a blank, move the number to the other side. So that's my first step. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to go 16x squared and minus 128x. Gather them together, leave a blank, and then minus 25y squared minus 50y, leave a blank, equals, and then add the 169 to both sides. Get rid of it there, equals positive 169. Let me make that equals a little bigger, more dramatic, because it's important. Equals positive 169. That's going to be a wall of separation for us. Okay. In fact, let me just let that keep on going down. There we go. So, okay, so now that's step 1. So step 2. Factor out numbers in front of x squared and y squared. So this 16, I got to put 16 parenthesis. Now, 16 times x squared will go back to 16x squared. 16 times what will go back to minus 128. That should have an x there. Minus 128x. Well, just take your calculator. 128 divided by 16. You'll get 8. So this needs to be minus 8x, because 16 times 8 will go back to 128. Plus a blank. Just leave a blank there. Now do the same thing for y. Let me change the color for y. Minus 25. You know, minus 25 times y squared will go back to minus 25y squared. Minus 25 times y will go back to 50. That needs to be plus 2y, doesn't it, to make minus 50y. Plus a blank. And then equals positive 169. So we factor out like that. Oops. Here we go. Okay, so now step 3. We take middle number divided by 2 squared. Put in each blank. That's the completing number. That's the number that will complete the square, that'll help it to eventually factor as a parenthesis square. So you got to take that middle number right here, and you got to put that over 2 squared, which is negative 4 squared, which is positive 16. Put that in the blank. Same thing here. The 2, put it over 2, That should be over 2, right? Middle number over 2 squared, which is 1 squared, which is positive 1, and put that in the blank. Or you don't need to make plus 1, it's just 1. All right, put that in the blank. Now, step 4, add, or not add, that's not a good way to put it. Make sure you do the same thing to both sides. I just changed something on the left side, didn't I? I just put in a brand spanking new 16 here that was never there before. Right? We had a blank before. There wasn't a 16. So if I put 16 on the left side, I've got to do the same thing to both sides. Now, that 16 isn't a 16 alone. He's under the influence of another 16. In other words, if I multiplied these out, there would be a new 16 times 16 on the left side. So I've got to make sure there's a new 16 times 16 added to the right side. Does that make sense? By adding in this brand spanking new 16. So I mean, so all the other steps we're doing were just factoring, and we didn't put new stuff in, but this is new. This 16 right here is brand spanking new, right? Is this making sense? I really want this to make sense. It'll work so much better for you if it makes logical sense. You might say, well, we made a lot of changes. Why did we? No. This right here is just factoring. That didn't really change the left. If I was to multiply 16 times x squared or 16 times 8, it would go right back to this. We didn't change anything. But when we put this 16 in, that's new. That changes the left side. And however you got to make sure you do the same thing to both sides, right? Because they were equal before. This is an equation. The left side equals the right. At least they did equal each other. So if you change the left side in some way, you must change the right side in the very same way. So they're still equal afterwards. So you got to think, what did I really do to the left side? Well, I put a brand spanking new 16 here. Yeah, but he's under the influence of a multiplying 16. So really, if you multiplied this out now, there would be a brand new 16 times 16 that was never there before that you added to the left side. So you got to add that to the right side also. And then what did you do here? You put a 1 in. But that's under the influence of a minus 25. If I was to multiply out this side, boom and boom and boom, I'd get minus 25y squared, which was there all along. And minus 25 times 2y would be minus 50y, which was there all along. And minus 25 times 1, that'd be a brand spanking new minus 25 was not there all along. So I changed the left side by minus 25. I've got to change the right side also by minus 25. So I'm really doing the same thing to both sides. Okay, what does that make the right side become? Just use your calculator. 169 plus 16 times 16 minus 25. I'm getting a nice clean 400. So that's 400 on the right side. Okay, so the right side has become 400. I changed the right side in the same way I changed it. By putting in this 16 here, under the influence of a 16, I did the same thing to the right side, 16 times 16. This plus 1, under the influence of a minus 25, I minus 25 to the right side, just like the left side. So the right and left have been changed the same. The right side's 400. Now, step 5, factor the left side as parentheses squared. What am I talking about? Well, that left side now, let me bring it down here. We have 16 x squared minus 8x plus 16 minus 25 y squared plus 2y plus 1 equals, and now we have the 400 on the right side. Keep this little line going. Okay, so now this left side, this will factor. How does it factor? What two numbers multiply to be 16, add to be minus 8? Minus 4 multiplies to be plus 16, adds to be minus 8. And what numbers multiply to be 1, add to be 2? Well, that's just 1 and 1, right? We good there? And so Simplifying that, that's just x minus 4 squared, y plus 1 squared. So it factored as a square. That's why we added in that 16 and that 1, because those were the perfect numbers, which we found by middle number over 2 squared. That'll always do it for you. Perfect number to make it factor as squared. Last step, divide through by number on the right to equal 1. So now I just divide through by 400, 400, 400, like that. So what do we have? So we have 16x minus 4 squared over 400 minus, 25 y plus 1 squared over 400 equals 400 over 400 is 1. I probably should have been a little sloppy, just done it on the next line there, huh? Whoops. Let me just get rid of these 400s here. All right, so divide through by 400. Oh, so I'm not doing a very good job here. So this should have been 400 over 400. So divide through by 400. Now, simplify. So this is going to be 16 goes into 400. I don't know. Isn't it 25? Yeah, 25. And 25 goes into 416. So we end up with x minus 4 squared over 25 minus y plus 1 squared. Getting a little sloppy here. Over 16 equals 1. So we did it. We made the equation into the form, and they might want us to make this bottom 5 squared or this 4 squared. Either way, I think they'll take it either way. So there it is. We were able to transform that original equation by completing the square. That's a lot of work.